Hello, you miraculously manly marmosettes. I'm Ralphie and welcome to my channel called Fitter... It's the other channel. Welcome to the Bothy. I was going to say Fitter Philosophy, but that's my other channel. Yes, I'm going to settle down now, refocus, and let's get into it. Welcome to Ralphie.com, the home of quality spirit reviews on YouTube, primarily Scotch whisky, because that's what's most available to me at a good price, and frankly, I love it. Not all of it, but quite a bit of it. And some of it is absolute nectar of the gods. Yeah? So, that kind of paints the picture. I think the interior of this bothy could use a painting, but it's kind of rustic and old-fashioned, so I'll think about it in 5 years. It's supposed to look a little bit shabby. It's the complete antithesis, the opposite of a leather-studded luxury chair in some high-end style bar, which you see featured in whisky adverts all the time, full of sophisticated people being exclusive and, of course, at the same time excluding. You're not excluded. Everybody's welcome to the Bothy. And a big thank you to Michael Fortner, who has provided the malt mention to Ralphie Review 966. Because I'm very inclusive of these malt mentions and I always like to give credit to the provider. And in this review I have a Scotch single malt whisky which is a representative of the company which has won the title in 2022 of Best Independent Bottler in the online Scotch Whisky Awards, and you'll find a link down below in the description box, oswa.co.uk, which in my opinion are the most relevant, engaging and interactive and connecting and inclusive. Very important that. We're not being exclusive here. We are being inclusive. And that matters. And the OSWAs are the most inclusive whisky awards in the world, in my opinion. So what do we have in the category of Best Independent Bottlers? Where's my glass? Hang about. I'm supposed to have a whisky glass here. Where's it gone? Hang about. I won't be a minute. I forgot my glass. I'm sure I had a glass sitting there. Could you excuse me? I'll be back in a minute. Can I thank you for your patience in waiting? It wasn't going to take very long. As soon as I went outside, I saw it lying just where I jump over the stream. And it fell out of my pocket. I didn't hear it landing because, of course, it's all nice and mossy. There we go. We may proceed. There were 6 nominations. When I say that Ralphie's videos are inclusive, it's inclusive of virtually everything, including the bloopers and the unrehearsed, unscripted bits. It's just the way it is. So the nominations, 6 nominations for Best Independent Bottler of Scotch Whisky for 2022. And they include Adelphi, who are a high-end, high-quality independent bottler, whose prices have been rising quite steeply over the last few years, but there's no doubt about it, they bottle good stuff generally, and it's in high demand. And also it tends to be collectible at auction for those who are interested in buying better quality whiskies to drink. Also, Gordon and MacPhail, Scotland's largest independent bottler, who bottle a tremendous range of single malts from other distilleries in quite a number of different styles, 43%, 46% higher in cask strength bottlings. And importantly with Gordon and MacPhail is their availability around the world. They are arguably the most available independent bottler on the planet. So if you're outside the UK and you see a Gordon and MacPhail bottling, it may be the only independent bottling choice that's available to you, and I recommend you consider it and do your groundwork, because it could be a seriously good bottling. Next is North Star, a youngster in the independent bottling scene who really kind of stole the show when they started by having some really nice bottlings, particularly of older whiskies which were blended malts, which they were able to source at competitive prices, bottle and sell on at competitive prices to the customers. So a very valuable connection there with to establish the reputation at North Star. They continue to be bottling whiskies, and as far as I'm aware, they're going to be opening their own distillery soon. So, interesting times. Next is Scotch Malt Whisky Society, who have a very popular fan club. Granted, there has been a period historically where they seem to be bottling some really young stuff which was simply not ready for bottling. However, they do, without a doubt, nobody can argue with it, they do bottle some very convincing and diverse array of whiskies and other spirits. And particularly one of their strong points is sourcing whiskies from outside of Scotland, from other parts of the world, which they present naturally. Right? And this is an important thing with the independent bottlers, is the higher calibre of presentation of the whisky to the market. So the independent bottlers, they're not really advertising, they're not big spend marketing people, they are letting the contents of the bottle do the advertising for them, in the fact that they are frequently unchill filtered and natural colour. And therefore you're simply getting a better quality version of whatever it is that they've bottled, whether it be good or bad, to be honest. But at least they're being respectful to you as an experienced whisky drinker. The thing about the Scotch Malt Whisky Society is there's a paywall. In other words, you have to join the society first before you get the opportunity to buy bottles from them at retail level. Although you should have no problem sourcing aftermarket Scotch Malt Whisky Society bottlings at auctions, the online auctions in particular. And finally, Thompson Brothers, the newest kids on the block, so to speak, who have targeted the small volume production of whisky very carefully and priced their bottlings very sensitively, because they anticipated that with the reach and the clout of the internet, that they would quickly become spotted and talked about. And they're absolutely right. But the winner in 2022 has been Signatory Vintage. This is the independent bottlers who own Edradour Distillery. And they generally do two styles of bottling. The unchill filtered collection, which is at 46% natural colour, unchill filtered, and importantly, so importantly, they actually show us some respect. They don't insult our intelligence because they say so in the label, and they pin what they're saying to the contract, because the contract is written on the paper, and in this the paper stuck to the bottle. Right? And that is the contract. You can clearly see that's natural colour. You can probably see it's slightly hazy. Always the sign of a better presentation of a whisky, not a better quality. Because if it's poor quality whisky, you're still going to get poor quality results. But a good quality whisky will have the results amplified by the calibre of this presentation. Signatory are aware of this. They also do an oval bottle of cask strength versions. And they're very varied and diverse. Some are highly accessible price-wise, and others are most certainly more expensive. All whisky is becoming more expensive for a number of reasons. I'm going to cover that in my extras coming along shortly. In Ralphie Review 966 Extras. But back to this review. This particular version of Signatory that I'm reviewing for you as a good illustrative example of why Signatory have won the accolade by popular vote for the best independent bottler 2022 is Mortlach. Signatory are simple and transparent and low volume when it comes to marketing. There is virtually no marketing coming out of Signatory. They have a brand ambassador, of course they do. They do have outreach people who will discuss the brand with you, of course they do. But they don't make a song and dance of it. They don't get condescending and disingenuous with it. And frankly, to more informed and regular whisky drinkers like you and I, that really matters, because there comes a point where when you're getting simple, sanitised messages from the industry, it just becomes tedious. And the reason I bump on about it is because the industry just keep on doing it. And it's going to get even worse when government regulations come in restricting the advertising and promotion of alcohol products, which in my opinion is most certainly going to happen in the not so distant future. See, Signatory are so light touch about the way they present their whisky to the market. They release them in not one bottle at a time, but in groups of batches, which are competitive. Some of them are very economically priced. Others are, you can just tell they're really good qualities, older whisky. You're paying more of a premium, but you're not paying the absurd premiums that are being asked for some official bottlings. Some of what the range of what they provide is excellent. And generally, this again is another independent bottler like Gordon MacPhail that's actually available beyond the European shores. Not so much in the USA as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong in that. Sometimes I am. But I'm just going to nose and smell and taste and review this specific one, which I bought last year. It's 11-year-old Mortlach, distilled in 2009, bottled 2021. A combination of two casks, 317-285 and 317-286, both hogsheads, providing a significant sum. I was about to say providing 393 bottles, but in fact this is a bottle number, right? So they probably got more than that. I would imagine they would at a young age, hogshead-sized casks. I would anticipate reducing to 46%. They've got about at least 750 bottles, maybe a little bit more. And if you miss this one, don't worry, because they're like buses. There'll be another one along shortly. It'll be a little bit different. It might be better. It might not be so amazing, but it'll be. You won't feel cheated for the price you're paying in the UK, put it that way. So, natural colour, unchill filtered, Mortlach. Mortlach is a savoury malt. It's hard to find from independent bottlers now. That's why I'm reviewing this one. As a young whisky, it's spirit dominant. The hogsheads have imparted a light colour. I think they're ex-bourbon hogsheads, ex-bourbon barrels converted into hogsheads. And I think they're second fill. I could be wrong, they could be fairly light wooden first fill, but immediately I noticed the smell of American oak, the light wood influence with vanilla and a little bit of creaminess, a little bit of brulee. Now, the previous contents of these casks could have been sherry, and they've been in their second fill. So it can be a little bit confusing at times, says I, with the voice of experience, to try and pin down casks, because cask influence is so diverse, incredibly diverse, and that's just the way of it. Nose, fresh fruit, slightly astringent, slightly dry, slightly sour, grain rich, slightly creamy, slightly brulee, soft vanilla creamy, restrained. The cask is not dominating in any way, which suggests strongly refill casks. I also think before the casks were refilled, they were rinsed with water just to sluice them out, because the influence of previous content, which was probably whisky, is relatively light. And if they weren't rinsed, it was probably something like Benrinnes, or a lowland single malt like Auchentoshan, or Bladnoch. A soft, light, delicate but intense nose. Flavour. Gentle in arrival. Almost reserved. Complex development right at the beginning. Cereal, creamy, slightly porridgey as an oatmeal. Lemon juice, pineapple rind, little bit of grapefruit in there, some soft mint notes. Some savoury really starts to show in the latter part of the development, and into the finish you get something soft, slightly gingery, clean, fresh, and just a tiny hint of peat. This is a soft one, and it's not what you expect from Mortlach. Mortlach is a big bruiser of a malt. But one of the beauties with the independent bottlings is they give you a just whole different take on something that you may or may not be familiar with. And again, if you have an official bottling of Mortlach, and good luck when you get the bill for that, skip the 12-year-old. You'd have to start with the 16. Because the 12-year-old is not, in my opinion, as official bottling, it's a very poor ambassador for Mortlach. The problem with the official bottlings, they're just over-engineered, they're over-structured, they're over-composed. And not that long ago, they were in 50 centilitre bottles, so you're getting a short measure for the price you were paying. Fortunately, that policy's been abandoned. But you do notice with the owners of Diageo, the owners of Mortlach who are Diageo, they do kind of chop and change their mind now and again over the years. There doesn't seem to be a sort of grounded focus, a clear mission statement. So I've added a drop of water, and immediately we're getting a little bit of Scotch mist appear in the glass. Now, can I give you some advice here? It doesn't matter what brand ambassadors or emailed replies from distilleries tell you that they don't chill filter the whisky, but they don't happen to mention it in the label because it's not important to them. If you pour a glass of their whisky and you see the haze in the glass, it means it's not been heavily filtered. If there is no haze in the glass, it means it has been heavily filtered, even if they didn't chill the whisky first, which they might not need to do when they're bottling in winter time and the ambient temperature's a lot lower. It is very easy to be ill-informed by the whisky industry. I'm going to have an extras in that issue shortly. Water kicks it alive. Much more citrus. An absolute citrus bomb. Beautiful. Light, delicate, but intense. The flavours are restrained, but the sensations become bold. There's a real complexity. It's not coming from the range of flavours. It's coming from the range of sensations. The sour and the bitter are beautifully balanced in here. It's not an incredibly sophisticated whisky. In fact, I would call this a rather simple, rustic version of Mortlach. But I have to say, particularly when you've experienced the brand over a few years, you'll get this immediately. It's a very heartwarming, endearing, shorthand version of Mortlach. It doesn't carry a thunderstorm inside the glass that a more sherried, bolder Mortlach would. But with this, it's a wonderful mood on what is a rather moody malt. I hope that kind of explains things to you. Anyway, let's give this a malt mark. I'm going to give this 82 out of 100. Now, I know what you're thinking, hey Ralphie, could you go back to these marks where everything was basically 85 to 90? The problem is there needs to be more separation between the really, really good whiskies and the others. But what you will find somewhere later in this year, I'll probably give a whiskey 70, possibly even lower. I'm sure I'll find one in a supermarket somewhere near where I am. I've got to rejig because there's too many 90s and too many retailers basically jacking up the prices as a result of that. That's one reason. Another reason is that it's really good to help recalibrate. I can move the marks up slowly again over time. But no, I'm going to bring them down for the season. And because we're now in a global whisky market, not just a Scotch whisky market. And there's some absolute sparklers out there. And to really see and give them the recognition they deserve, there needs to be some more separation in the marks. It's a malt mark, this one, Integrity Whisky. A lovely, honest, non-expensive. That's important. I think that's been the final thing that gave Signatory the award in the Oswis for 2022 as Best Independent Bottler. It's the sheer transparency and simplicity of their business model. People warm to it. People really do. There's a connectivity there, which doesn't need a lot of communication or a lot of tub thumping or big events and all the rest of it. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. Before I go, I just want to say thank you to everybody who bought my new book, Life, Death and Whiskey. I really appreciate, particularly over the Christmas New Year sales online. It's done really well, and I appreciate all of you who left 5-star reviews and enjoyed it as just a good, entertaining read, which is what it is, because there's just no point in me writing a conventional whisky book which has already been written a dozen times and more. The conventional orthodox whisky book is already out in the bookshops and online in all its different permutations, and there is simply no point in adding to that. Therefore, I'm coming to whisky from a different angle. The way whisky connects with a community, with a society, the way the pouring of whisky kind of weaves its way through the weeks, months and years of people's individual lives. And also, my previous book, Stories from a Whisky Bar, and I'm really bumping into people in the street and they say, my favourite character in your book was Billy Billy the Builder, Bobby the Builder, or Ella the Murderer. It's a fictional book, but it's inspired by real life events, put it that way. And my first book, of course, is Search for a Whiskey Bothy, the most it's really the most immediate whiskey book of the three. And it's basically my historic journey discovering whiskey back in the 1980s, and just how one thing led to another at a certain moment in time as whiskey, the whole whiskey scene, the whiskey world was changing dramatically, and how I was there to witness it, yeah? So there we go, folks. That's my books. And they're available for £12 or the equivalent in whatever currency you're using. Search for a Whiskey Bothy, Stories from a Whiskey Bar, and Life, Death and Whiskey, all by Ralphie. Now, if you pop back for my extras, I'm going to be talking about the price of whiskey. I'm going to be trying to put it into context, because I know that there's concern about the rising price of whiskey, which is affecting some whiskies. And other whiskies is beginning to affect them. And I want to give some context into this. So I hope you'll join me for that. I'm Ralphie. Where's my big red clicker? Here it is. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.